The Bazaar team have dropped another huge Q&A on us today. A bunch of our important questions answered. Or were they answered? Well, not exactly, but either way, I'm going to go through them and let you guys know. Like, he answered all the questions, but there wasn't really much, with the exception of a couple of questions, which were really interesting, we'll get into as we get through them. The bulk of the questions are sort of like, yes, you'll see when we get the game out soon, or whenever, you know. Or more specifically relating to the questions that we asked, and then some of the questions in the middle as well were a little bit like, yeah, that's a good thing. We're doing. Yep, we're doing it. I'm like, sure, great, yeah. Yeah, there's not a crazy amount of new information, but hey, it's still all good stuff. And that's the important thing, right? It's still all good stuff. So first things first, Pickle got 2 questions straight out the gate. Decent question to ask. This was, I think, I don't know if this was ever answered before, but this is something that Reynad had suggested before. But then again, he might have just suggested it in streams. And I know not all of us EU lot were able to catch it in streams. Yeah, PvE Monsters. So when you're going through your day, going through the bazaar markets, maybe you run into a robber or you run into the hag. They won't necessarily just have the same items that you could have. Like, the robber isn't going to have a Jabalian dagger. The robber will have, I don't know, a shiv or something more appropriate. And the hag won't just have max potions. The hag will have, you know, her cauldron or something. I don't know. Yeah, they want monsters to feel fun and cool, not only because you want everything to feel fun and cool in your game, but you could think, okay, so if you're looking for things to cut out of the game to launch on time, why not just make it monster items? And he does say that they might do that. But one thing that monsters really do well for the Bazaar is give you the feeling of achievement without having to beat a player. So they released a full video about the net fun of the Bazaar, or at least they covered the net fun of the Bazaar in a particular video. And Ben, the previous designer, did an excellent job of discussing and showing how the Bazaar has a higher level of net fun than most other games. In most other games, you have a winner and a loser. Someone is happy, someone is unhappy. That is a net 0. You're all back to positive, right? Or to the baseline. But in the Bazaar, and this was also based off of like having lots of counterplay and all of that, but I'm simplifying. The losses don't feel as bad in the Bazaar. So your wins are up, and then even if you left it at that, you would still be a bit of a net positive. But throughout the day, you continually battle monsters. And while they won't feel as emphatic as a full win, you'll get that small spark in the back of your mind that's like, oh yeah, okay, I won. Okay, I won. I'm still winning. I'm beating things. And then you fight the player at the end of the day and you're like, oh no, I lost. Okay, well, I was winning throughout the entire day. So, you know, it's still a fun experience. So just generally having things that you can beat that are easier, that won't lead to someone feeling bad. Like, if you defeat a monster, the game isn't going to feel bad. Just generally is a nice concept to have, and should generally make the game be a happier place. You know, it'll help stop people being as toxic, you would hope, among other things.
Seeing how it.
But at the same time, a lot of the monsters, like a lot of the NPCs you fight during the day, like for example, the beggar idea I gave, or the robber idea that I gave, right? Why wouldn't the robber have a Jabalian dagger? That robber is in the same bazaar you're in. If he's just another person, why can't he steal a dagger and then use it in a fight against you, you know? Why can't the weird cosmic deity that you fight use an Atlas stone? Or, you know, if you come across pirates, they can use a bunch of Vanessa's items because they would. You know, these things all still make thematic sense. This is still a bazaar with lots of people in. In fact, if anything, if you really take a step back and look at it, that should make it feel more like you're part of this large bazaar. But
any plans on making the atmosphere get...
There you go. Pickle question number 2. Pickle one after the other. This was one that he did confirm, which was fun.
As the day progresses and gets closer to the final node. Yep, that was in the works since like the beginning of last year, but the board's changed a lot.
So they've had a day or night system.
At some point, we definitely want that.
At different points in the game's development. The game has changed a lot. Like, do I have the old stuff here? This is some really old Bazaar stuff, like really, really old, like before they had any card art or anything. And like it's between these phases or during some of these phases, they had a day-night cycle. Like the day-night cycle has pre-existed so many different things, and it's been thrown out, it's been brought back in. But at long last, it looks like we are getting a day-night system, but it's more like a day-night signal than a day-night full system. So as you progress through the day, we already know we have 8 events that happen throughout the day. I guess you'll start the day at dawn, so maybe the light will be on predominantly on the east side of the map, maybe, of your board. And throughout the day, maybe the source of the light that's cast onto your board will change and eventually go into dusk and then into night before you go into your battle. Which canonically means all PvP fights happen at nighttime? Maybe? I just realized this second run through is basically, it's not really my analysis of the things we've learned, which is what it has been every other time we've done a Q&A video like this. It's more my commentary on reading between the lines. Here are the things that he is saying but isn't saying. So the thing that kind of sparked this question, and what I think Swampsy and in the question afterwards me were looking for, is that we'd heard a long time ago that duels might have a mechanic where, let's say, like 1 or 2 of her board slots were actually stoves, and if you put certain ingredients on them, that would like power them up or level them up, or that would be her unique mechanic, would be cooking on this stove thing. And that is so vastly different to how the other classes play. Like at the moment we have Vanessa and Pygmalion. Sure, one of them's more defensive, one of them's more aggressive, but typically, even if they're playing with different stats, they play the same sort of way that different classes in other games like Hearthstone or Slay the Spire would, right? They have unique mechanics in their card abilities, but they don't necessarily have a unique mechanic as a class in general. But this idea of duels being able to cook was nuts. I was in love with it instantly. I was like, hell yeah. You mean if I can put like a certain ingredient on a stove and it'll power up, and that means I can play differently with all of my other items, and it'll just be this, it'll just feel so different to anything else just in the market in general. So I was really stuck on that. And then we heard more about Stell, and we heard that Stell will have a unique mechanic. And then we went a little bit crazy with that, looked into like really closely into a couple of leaked screenshots of their Trello board, where you can see that like Stell has one more hero stat, like a buff, a status effect almost, if you will. She has one more of these hero stats than any of the others we've seen so far. So we were like, okay, maybe this is like altitude, or this is her like flying ability, and like her entire mechanic as a class will be to balance this statistic, which will make all of her cards react differently. Like this is what we were almost hoping for to get in unique mechanics. From his explanation here, he doesn't deny that, but it does sound more like we're leaning towards Mac is going to be using potions, so you're going to feel like an alchemist. Yeah, okay, sure. When I play Slay the Spire as the rogue character, I use a bunch of knives and stuff, so I feel like a thief. But if you gave me, I don't know, a mechanic where, again, using the rogue as an example, if you gave me a mechanic where I could just like sneak up behind someone and physically like move, even if it didn't mechanically do something, even if you just physically moved my character behind them and said that I do more damage now that I'm backstabbing or something, that would be fucking cool. I'm not necessarily asking for something to mechanically signify the different classes. Don't get me wrong, if it mechanically works, that's even better. That's what the real goal is. But even if it's just something that just physically feels different about playing the class. Like, I don't know, even down to like max potions having a different animation as they were dropped. Like obviously we're missing a lot of VFX. This shit might come. Mac might actually feel like an alchemist when you're playing him. Like you might have all these cool sound effects of like potions being poured and like the visual effects of these sparkling liquids as you place them on the board. We might get all of this still. We don't know what the VFX and SFX look like and sound like yet. But it sounds a little bit more like we're just going to be getting a bunch of different Vanessa and Pygmalions, which is fine. Like I said, they feel like very distinct classes. They will both play in very different ways. They both have a bunch of different ways you can play them. They just feel distinct from each other in the same way that classes in any game feel distinct from each other. Any good game. It's still done well. We just had high hopes. And I feel like we might not be getting it. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
Dooley builds a pretty cool engine.
This is a trap. Dooley builds a pretty cool engine. That could be the mega awesome thing of Dooley physically puts things together and builds the mega Dooley that we all want to see. But in deck building terms, an engine is when you have a series of cards that all link together to produce a certain effect. So I feel like where Dooley is going to be your quite typical card building engine class. So you're going to want like, I don't know, Oh My Goods is the one that immediately comes to my head, which is nothing like the Bazaar. But let's say you have like a fishing robot, and then you send that off to the, I don't know, the gutting robot that like takes all the innards out of the fish. And then you have another robot that does the cooking, Micro Dave, we already have him. And then at the end result is that you have a fully cooked fish that's gone from something to gone from basically nothing to becoming something. And then like once you align the pieces of Exodia, it finally does something. But all the pieces themselves aren't necessarily great. That's basically an engine. And I feel it sounds like Dooley is going to be this engine class. But who the fuck knows? Maybe we're creating Mega Dooley. And this was me trying to bait him into... I basically, actually, I saw Swamp's question, right? I was like, okay, that'll be cool if he answers that. But I wonder if he's not ready to answer that question. So let me ask a question that has no like solid ties to the game as it is, and see if Reynad will just let us take a little peek inside his brain towards the type of unique mechanics that he's offering. I just wanted him to spitball an idea so I could guess what level we're going to be on.
I don't want to like sit here and rattle off a bunch of them randomly, like verbally.
But do that.
Because then they're like hard to imagine. I want to give you guys visual aids.
Not hard to imagine. And if it is, I'll explain it.
We're going to have a lot of unique mechanics. The classes are going to feel very different from one another. And it's not just the heroes and the card sets themselves are going to have unique mechanics. It's the merchants, it's the monsters. We really just have a flexible game that we can do a lot of cool stuff with.
You want to specifically make sure the merchants and monsters feel unique.
Are there any current plans for how tournaments would work? What about a ranked ladder?
But at the moment, it does look like he's sticking with the asynchronous play. He's sticking with... I mean, you kind of have to, right? You have to rate your win-loss record in a run over your skill level. If I have a win rate of... If I have 3 wins and 1 loss, and I queue up for a game, if I'm Grandmasters and Reynad's Grandmasters, but he queues up with a 0, like a 2 and 2 deck, right? So 2 wins, 2 losses. My deck's probably stronger than his, or even worse, if he queues up with like a 1-1 deck that's 2 days behind me. His deck's probably a fair bit worse than mine. Definitely at that point. Doesn't matter how good a player he is, he just flat out hasn't got the deck to fight me. So it doesn't really make that much sense to prioritize matchmaking based off of skill rating. You absolutely have to match the record first. In fact, I will go so far as to say, if you cannot match the record, if I'm, I don't know, 6-0, and I'm going for my last couple of wins, if you can't find someone else who's 6-0 for me to fight, if you can only find someone who's 5-1, God forbid you can find someone that's 4-2, I say don't match me. Do not match me up against that person. Match me against a ghost who is 6-0. Have a bunch of ghosts in the back catalogue. We've had this whole ghost discussion before, whether or not we should be fighting ghosts. I don't really, just for the mentality of queuing up for a PvP game and being able to physically take MMR, or like feel after the game like you've taken MMR off of someone, that feels more like an accomplishment. Like you've physically gained in comparison to other people. I don't think ghosts in general are a good thing. However, if you cannot match my record, you cannot have me fight someone that's weaker or stronger. That's unfair on me. So yeah, have me face a ghost at that point. And I will say, as someone who's played competitively in a few games now, that once you've reached your peak, so I don't know, I peaked in Smite at like 3k MMR, or in Overwatch I reached 3.2, close to Masters. Once you reach that peak, those games actually become quite stressful. And I actually, like, both of those times I peaked, I didn't play for like a season after that. Because I peaked, and every single game I had to be on my absolute limit, or I knew I was dropping down. Like, I knew I would lose rating. So every game does become really, really difficult. Now, a few seasons later, going back to a game that I was good at, but my rating has diminished, I get to play with some low-level players. Honestly, being able to play a game casually, because you know you're not going against players that are of equal ranking to your best day, that's a relief. That's fun. Like, I enjoy playing those games casually now, because I know on my best day, I could probably kick the ass of anyone that I'm playing against. But I don't have to focus and stress that hard. Now, I can just play casually at my level, not be a hindrance to the team, still have a very successful game, but I don't have to stress about it. So that is one good thing that comes from not having skill-based matchmaking. And if we end up not having skill-based matchmaking in the Bazaar, I think it's not going to be a bad thing. Like, I will be able to queue into every single fight, and if I get wiped with, I'll just be like, oh, fucking hell, that was probably some Grandmaster player. Whatever, it happens, it's just random. Go next. If I wipe the floor with someone, I'll be like, I'm the best here. Like, these guys didn't stand a chance, I'm a strategic genius, fuck these guys. So yeah, you can just blame your luck at that point. That is worrisome, because the Reddit might just become a massive list of people saying, the RNG matchmaking system is fucking terrible. Either I get matched against a Grandmaster player, or I get matched against someone who's got a counter build. You've got to hope that doesn't happen, but I can see that happening if there's no matchmaking restrictions at all. So, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Either way, I'm actually pretty hyped to play Ranked Bazaar. And, you know, kick Reynad's ass at his own game. Be kind, please, Reynad. I am useless. If I'm streaming, my chat can carry me. If I'm streaming, I can probably beat Reynad. Because you guys are a bunch of geniuses. Some of you.
Or even Q3 release date unfeasible. We just kept developing the game, kept making it better, and just felt like we could release a much better game by pushing it a little. So, you know, I've tried my best to never give dates. But then I caved. I had moments of weakness, and I mentioned quarters at some point. Now people are all over me about that.
We know, as members of the Bazaar community, that this is almost definitely in response to the last couple of weeks where we've been going crazy about Q2 and Q3, specifically on the Tempo Republic page, where when it was released, it said, the Bazaar is releasing in Q2 of 2021. And then, you know, we raised that at the time, and it quickly got changed to Q3, but it still said, might even say to this day. In fact, should we check? So, we scroll down to the Bazaar section, we click read more, it's at the bottom, yep, still there. Either way, that is what he is referring to, and what he's referencing, and that we've all been bugging him about this last week. Because, you know, we're in the middle of Q3 now. Like, he's got like a month to release this game if he still wants it to be a Q3 game. Which, with this comment, I'm pretty certain. I've always been a late November, early December or at least for the last few months at least, I've been saying, my best guess, late November, early December this year. This makes me even more confident about that. We'll have to wait until his next stream, because I don't think he says his regular this year.
Do we have any events in mind during the day that resonate with the class the player's playing? We definitely plan on having some unique.
This was really cool. I hadn't even thought about this. That was a actually really important point. I hadn't really ever thought of this. I just kind of assumed that the merchants we got would be the merchants we got, and I was hoping for some seasonal merchants. Maybe, I don't know, one of Santa's little helpers comes during Christmas and sells Christmas themed items or something for a season. But yeah, I'd never actually considered, oh, you know what? If there ends up being like a piratey merchant or something, maybe that's actually just someone that Vanessa sees. Or even more importantly, maybe there are some, I don't know, maybe there's like a chocolatier that sells chocolate and also the ingredients for chocolate that only Pygmalion and Jules see. Because Jules can buy the ingredients for chocolate and Pygmalion can buy things like Pinata and Chocolate Bar. You know, maybe there will be these merchants or events that only certain people see. I don't know, maybe there's an event called School Reunion. Well, only the characters that went to school would go to that, which is Stell and maybe Jules. She went to a culinary school. Don't know if that actually counts. It was also not in this city at the very least. So yeah, you're probably just looking at Stell for that event. It's actually a really cool thing that I'd never considered, and looks like we're going to be getting. Not super conducive or important to how the Bazaar's actually going to work, but again, I'm a fantasy nerd more than I am a sci-fi nerd. I, again, enjoy sci-fi, don't get me wrong, but fantasy, number 1, sci-fi, number 3, I'd probably say historical, number 2 for me, in terms of setting. So yeah, it's nice to hear that we will probably be getting magic. I mean, they'd be stupid not to do a sort of wizard class eventually. I say stupid. There are a lot of things they can do, and they're being very different and unique, and I love that. I hope we don't just get generic old wizard man. I hope they go for something cool and interesting, and I imagine they will. That being said, magic is a big draw for a lot of people. Again, I'm not the only fantasy nerd that exists, so no, it'll be cool to see what they do. And I'm looking forward to seeing it be more of this like almost magic is assumed to be a technology type of thing. Like I imagine in the Bazaar, magic is probably a very learned thing and almost like a scientific fact. Like, oh yeah, if you go and study at this college and spend enough time focusing and have the right equipment, then yeah, you can freeze moisture particles in the air and create ice. You know, like a very sciencey magic is what I assume we'll end up getting. Maybe we also get demon summoning fireballs, I don't know.
We did bring in a design director a little over a month ago, and we've been hiring quite a bit. We have a lot of new designers that have joined the team, really veteran people from really successful games, and it's just been awesome to see, you know, the team blow up. And
so yeah, this is a pretty cool answer. We didn't get the exact answer, but it was pretty nice to get like they hired a design lead a month ago. Okay, cool. So they've already been probably working on building the team for a month, but they would have at least done some work on the game in the last month, alongside Reynad. I imagine getting a design lead in is also part of Reynad's plan to step away from it a little bit after launch. Maybe start looking at the next project and stuff. But it's good that they've been brought in this early, and it looks like the team is building. It could also explain why, you know, we've seen we've seen one person in particular. I'm not going to call them out in the middle of this, but we've seen one person's Twitter in particular. We're not sure if it's changed to, or if it was always said that, but we've spotted a game designer at the Bazaar at Tempo Storm or Tempo Games or whatever. So that we previously didn't consider was there. So this goes to explain that. You know, they've brought on a bunch of new designers to go with their new design lead to continue taking the game forward. So yeah, it's very good to hear. that Ben is not just a one-for-one replacement. And I think it would be very difficult to replace Ben one-for-one. Ben is exceptional at developing games from the ground up. We have seen that. He's had some exceptional ideas for the Bazaar. And I wish him all the best of luck going off with his own new project. I'm sure whatever he builds from the ground up there will be a success as well. But now we need some like grounded post-launch development ideas coming into this design world. You know, people that can not come up, people who don't think absolutely giant picture and build from the foundations up, but people who can take what you've given them and carefully mold it into something beautiful and new. Very much like the artists themselves, you know? They can paint on any surface they're given and come up with something extraordinary. That's what we hope that we have got with these hires. Fingers crossed.
Can we get a release date? Nope. What part of the game are you most proud of? I just
this is a
think
cute question.
Like a collective thing. It's I don't really
That's not an
parts
answer.
out. I mean, I think the art is amazing. I think the music is amazing. I think the gameplay is different and innovative, and I'm really proud of some of the design choices we made.
As I was saying, I've had people outside the game complete their parties, have no prior conception of the game, say that the art is really, really good. But from my perspective, what's really drawn me into the Bazaar, and my favorite part of the Bazaar so far, is 100% the innovations he's made. Not necessarily the asynchronous system, which I'm sure he's exceptionally proud of, because that was probably one of his brainchildren, and it really did allow the Bazaar to evolve into what it's become. But just so many of the small innovations are absolutely huge to me. What are some of my favorite innovations that they've had, though? I said not the asynchronous one, but the asynchronous matchmaking is definitely one of them. Honestly, the Slay the Spire sort of going to merchants, like building your deck through a series of actual encounters. Slay the Spire doesn't necessarily feel like you're building a deck out of encounters. Slay the Spire feels like small respites where you get stronger between fights. The Bazaar, from viewing it at the very least, feels like a bunch of encounters before a fight. So that that just like appeals to the story side of my brain, which is a huge part. I'm a creative. Hello, this is Twitch/YouTube. Of course I'm a creative.
How common do you want item crossovers to be, acquiring items from other characters? So that's a great question, and we've been experimenting with it by introducing all the other heroes as a merchant with a very low drop rate. Right now it's like, they're like the lowest drop rate event in the game.
So when I heard this, my heart sank a little bit. I was like, oh, they're the lowest drop rate in the game. But that's like one of the coolest parts of the game, is that you could be playing as Jules, and you could buy a dragon egg from one of the other classes, Pygmalion, I think. You know, you could buy the dragon egg and cook it. That would be cool, right? I'm so excited to do that. However, outside of my fascination for cooking dragon eggs, the real reason why that is so cool is because it's so rare. Typically, you won't have access to any of those cards. So when you see it appear, it'll have this effect on you where even if you're in a ranked game, I can imagine myself seeing another class appear as a merchant and going, like, ignoring any strategic plan I had and instantly clicking on that son of a bitch. Be like, okay, what do you got? What am I learning? What am I playing here? Like, what cool thing am I coming up with because I happened to land on Dooley, who sells me a robot army. Meanwhile, I'm playing Vanessa, a pirate. Like, hell yeah, I'm going to add a microwave robot to my pirate army and kick some ass.
Do you plan to make comics or graphic novels based on the Bazaar?
So, comic books, awesome. Transmedia IP, we already kind of knew that was coming. It's going to be cool. It's going to be good. I hope that it succeeds. It's difficult to make an IP work, but you can see why they've put so much time, effort, and money into developing their IP and not just creating bland, generic characters to throw out a card game for.
What progress and unlocks can free-to-play players grind towards? So the main thing is going to be new heroes. Every hero has its own completely unique set of cards, and you want to own all of them if you want to play with the different card sets. So,
a free-to-play player you don't pay a dime to buy the Bazaar. You just download the Bazaar for free. I assume get a character for free to begin with at the very least. Then for free, can continue to play and unlock the other classes. Now this is a method that other games have done. League of Legends, Smite, those are the ones off the top of my head that have this free-to-play model. And you can still buy the classes, and a lot of people will. I will. I mean, I've already put money into the game that I'll get back as gems or whatever the in-game currency is, so I'll be able to buy the classes. Point being, a free-to-play player can unlock all the classes. That's not to say that every free-to-play player will unlock all the classes, but if a dedicated free-to-play player takes up the game and enjoys it enough to continue playing, they will get to a point where they can unlock all the classes, which is incredible for a dedicated player to be able to do. If you're not a dedicated player, then you're either going to have to drop some money or just enjoy the couple of classes that you can unlock. But even so, you should still be able to unlock a good handful of classes. And as more classes get released, they probably end up going the League of Legends way, /Smite, /other games that have done this, and make their older classes cheaper for you to buy because they're not as relevant anymore. But yeah, it's very good to hear that they picked this model. I am a big fan of this model. And
probably the main thing that free-to-play players are going to be wanting to do. But there's a lot of cosmetic unlocks as well. Why should I play?
So that sounds like there are also going to be free cosmetic unlocks on top of paid cosmetic unlocks. Again, an important thing, even in this free-to-play world, in this free-to-play model, to make it work, you do actually kind of have to make it free to play. And that means free to enjoy. Because the way that these games bring you money is you hook a player, they enjoy playing your game, they'll pay some money for your game. Now they've paid money for your game, they're probably going to play your game for quite a bit longer. If they're still enjoying your game, they'll pay for that other thing that's cool. Oh, and then you release this other thing, and they're still playing your game because it was enjoyable back then when they were playing for free, and then they paid, and then they continued playing, and it was still fun, so they continued playing. And now you release this cool thing, they're going to buy that as well.
Play this and not Hearthstone. Dude, how much time do you
Cue a Reynad.
Our stuff aside, the game is just way less predatory in the way that it monetizes. This is the most free-to-play friendly card game, PvP card game that there is. You can't solve the game with an external meta. Like Hearthstone, gets really homogenized as a play experience because the meta gets solved, everybody puts the best decks on the internet, and then everybody copies them, and then you're just playing against the same 4 decks over and over.
Thank you for watching my analysis of their analysis of our questions. If you enjoy this sort of content, definitely do like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out, and there'll be a lot more content of this coming in the near future. I've been Gamesplay Greg. I'll catch you in the next video.